Hello YouTubers and fellow hams. Well, I'm down at the bench today. It's hot here in northern Indiana. It's going to be in the mid-90s today, and my air conditioner gave out last year, so it gets pretty warm in the house. It's at least 10 degrees cooler down here in the unfinished basement. I had a viewer request. Somebody wanted to see more detail on my battery box that I use out in the field. Now it's pretty simple, but I certainly don't mind answering the request. So we'll get a closer look at this battery box, which I made out of a child's tackle box. Let me reposition the camera and we'll take a close look at it. All right, so here's the battery box. As I said, it's a child's tackle box. We have two binding posts for the output over here. I like to use binding posts. You could use Anderson power poles or anything you want, really. For me, these work out great. They're somewhat versatile. I can clip on alligator clips. I can put a wire in there. I can do both at the same time, which is handy because I sometimes will run the Yaesu 817 and the LDG tuner off the same battery. I have a center off switch that switches between one battery and the other. And inside there are two batteries. So I've got two small sealed lead acid batteries. This one is an 8 amp hour. This one is 7.4 amp hour. I have the grounds tied together here, and they are fused. I actually did my schematic wrong, but we'll get to that in a minute. They're fused with an inline fuse. I have a 3 amp fuse because I mostly run QRP, but you know, you could put a larger fuse if you wanted. You could probably put the batteries in parallel also and get more amp hours. I wanted to do them separately for a couple of reasons. One, I like to be able to check the health of each battery individually, and so I can charge them individually and see how they're going. That's actually the main reason. And I don't mind switching between the two. I'll run off one battery. Actually, I've never run one down in the field. I've operated for hours off of one. The 817 and other QRP radios don't draw that much, but I've always got extra power. If I do run it down, I just flip the switch. The other problem with putting batteries in parallel is that their internal resistance will cause them to discharge each other, or one to discharge the other, especially if they're not matched. In this case, they're not. One's a slightly higher capacity than the other. So putting them in parallel would be problematic. You could isolate them with diodes, you know, but it just gets more complicated. I wanted to keep it simple. And over here, this is just a little old cardboard box and some foam I'm using as a spacer to keep the batteries from sliding around. And then the connection points are up here for the binding post. So it's really, really simple. Here's a schematic. Okay, I drew it from memory. I forgot that I'd fused the negative rather than the positive line, but that doesn't really matter. You could do it either way. It's extremely simple. The two batteries are together. Their negative side is tied together and goes to the negative binding post. Here's the center off switch for selecting one battery or the other. And I put the fuse in the positive line, which is probably the way you should do it. In mine, I actually wired the fuse on the negative side. It probably doesn't matter all that much as long as it's fused. So if something falls across the terminals out here, you don't end up burning a wire like an incandescent bulb filament. You just pop the fuse and then replace it. So, like I said, extremely simple. There's not a lot to it, but it's very convenient. You know, I just close this up, and I'm ready to go to the field. I don't trust this little plastic snap all that well. I mean, that thing's pretty easy to pop off, and there's some heft in here when you're carrying it, and I didn't want the lid to fly open while I was carrying it. So there's actually most of these tackle boxes have this little port here, this little lock port where you could put a little padlock on it so nobody would steal your fishing lures. Of course, they could just pick up the whole tackle box. But anyway, that's useful. I put a screw in there to a little screw. I put that in there just to lock this shut so that I don't have to worry about it when I'm carrying it. And it's not too heavy, so there you go. Like I said, it's pretty simple, but for the viewer that wanted more detail, I'm happy to oblige, and I hope this was helpful. Thanks for watching.
If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to give it a thumbs up. Also, if you're not already a subscriber, click to subscribe. Join us on the Facebook channel for discussion about the videos. And if you'd like to help support this channel, please click to support me on my Patreon page.